The Wisconsin vs. Miami lawsuit that became public last week could change the game and either plunge it into truly the wild, wild west, or start to provide some structure and enforceable rules when it comes to the transfer portal and NIL. It's going to be a landmark case where we will look back and say, this may have saved college football and the NCAA, or led it to its eventual demise. To be frank, I'm a Wisconsin fan and an alum from the school. I say that because I believe in being transparent, but at the same time, I'm going to try to make this video with as little bias as possible. I've been following the story since it first broke, back in December and January, and have witnessed all the twists and turns that have unfolded. I have no legal background, so I have no idea which direction this case is going to go, but I thought I would lay out the story from the start to where it is now. This is the story of the landmark legal case that will change college football for forever. But before we get into this, if you enjoy college football and alternate football league content like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, let me know who your favorite college football team is in the comment section below. As a little side note, there's a thunderstorm going on in the background of me making this video, so I only think it adds to the vibes of this video. But to understand the full story, we need to go back to July 1st of 2021 when the concept of NIL, name, image, and likeness, in college sports officially began, as the NCAA implemented an interim policy allowing student athletes to profit off their name, image, and likeness rights after a growing push by the legal challenges, state legislation, and growing public support for athletic compensation. I have a plan to do the multi-part documentary in the near future about who killed college football down the road, but for now, I will basically keep things simple. The NCAA was never supposed to become a multi-billion-dollar entity that it ended up becoming when it was first created in the early 1900s. But after years of discourse, the US government basically said they would lose their nonprofit status if they did not let athletes make money off their name, image, and likeness, aka NIL. At the time, many of us were calling for this with the idea players would be able to earn money off of making their own YouTube channels, working with local and national brands, and basically setting themselves up for the rest of their lives if a professional career was not in the cards or did not work out. The straw that broke the camel's back, in my opinion, was when former UCF kicker Donald De La Haye, aka Destroying on YouTube, was ruled ineligible in 2017 for making money off of a YouTube channel he built up making football-related skits and videos and kicking content. He was told to demonetize his football-related videos or be ruled ineligible. He chose to bet on himself, and it seemingly worked out as he has millions of YouTube subscribers and is currently playing for the San Antonio Brahmas of the UFL. The NCAA seemingly was annoyed by losing the NCAA vs. Austin case in 2021 and not wanting to be taken to court again and risk losing their nonprofit status, basically put their hands up and said, "You want NIL? Here's NIL with no guardrails." For years, they were saying that NIL would ruin the sport, and to prove their point, they allowed a system with no real rules to be able to come back and say, "See, I told you so." Although pay for play was not allowed, with an unregulated system and the NCAA not really caring anymore, as long as they continue to make billions and not wanting to be sued, that would basically be what would occur, as the NCAA would not enforce any rules when it came to NIL. This coincided with the NCAA transfer portal allowing a free one-time transfer in 2021. Once again, the way they would allow some players to transfer more than once without sitting out, mainly quarterbacks, to other players who were transferring for other reasons like family medical issues or wanted to leave school because you watched your position coach die in front of you, the lack of transparency by the NCAA, and the inconsistent way of enforcing their rules led to free transferring without repercussions in 2024. With no real restrictions around NIL, with a lack of enforcement of the little restrictions there were, along with free transfers, this led to tampering becoming insane and led us to where the game is today. That was a longer overview of the background information needed to understand what is going on between Miami and Wisconsin than I originally wanted or planned, but I wanted to make sure I explained the important background information of how we got here. So let's get into what this video is really about and explain the groundbreaking situation. According to the lawsuit, it all focuses around a player known as Student Athlete A. By using context clues and previous knowledge, this is referring to former Wisconsin cornerback Xavier Lucas, who left Madison to transfer to Miami this past winter under controversial circumstances, though Lucas is not ever mentioned by name in the actual lawsuit. Let's go over the timeline of what happened in December and into January. On December 2nd, Lucas would enter a 2-year NIL agreement that included substantial financial compensation and sign a separate agreement with the Badger Varsity Collective, which connects Wisconsin athletes with NIL opportunities. This agreement Lucas signed with the school is part of the revenue sharing structure that goes into effect on July 1st. According to Yahoo's Ross Dellinger, the framework of a new LLC that will oversee, manage, and enforce a settlement-related athletic compensation system for all of the NCAA Division I players. In other words, steps are being created to take a revenue-sharing structure where the schools will pay athletes directly as opposed to outside collectives doing so. Wisconsin used an agreement that the Big Ten Conference came up with the anticipation of the House settlement passing this past month. According to Badger Wire's Benny Kenny, in theory, the move is aimed to creating a substantial semi-professional structure. This new entity will have a dedicated salary cap management system, a regulated NIL marketplace, and an enforceable unit. Dellinger provided details on each aspect, as well as the history and context behind what would be monumental steps towards a new world of college athletics. Dellinger noted that the athletic directors from the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and ACC were all behind this initiative. Fast forward to December 17th, Lucas would surprise coaches by requesting his name be placed in the transfer portal, including as position coach. The reason this came as a major surprise is the fact that Lucas had texted Wisconsin coaches about the jersey number he wanted for the 2025 season earlier that day. CBS Sports' John Talty wrote on June 22nd, Wisconsin, after giving Lucas one of the largest revenue-sharing deals on the team, had no interest in letting the defensive back leave. It is believed this agreement, which would deliver payment beginning July 1st after the House settlement was approved, was binding and was confused why Lucas wanted to leave after all his actions and words to the point indicated he was happy and excited to be a Badger moving forward. Lucas would share that the reason he wanted to enter the transfer portal was because his father had a serious life-threatening illness, but according to Talty, Wisconsin believed the true reason emerged December 18th when one of Lucas's family members said that Lucas had hosted a Miami coach and a prominent Miami alumnus at his home earlier that month. Lucas's attorney would claim these allegations were false. On December 21st, Wisconsin would inform Lucas and his family that they would not enter his name into the transfer portal because they had a reasonable expectation for him to continue as a member of this football program until at least the conclusion of the university contract. According to the lawsuit, on January 7th, Lucas would hire his Florida attorney to negotiate a resolution. The lawyer would threaten to file an antitrust lawsuit against Wisconsin alleging violating NCAA rules in its refusal to enter Lucas and sent over a notice to terminate the revenue-sharing agreement. With the two sides not coming to an agreement, Lucas would withdraw from Wisconsin on January 17th and enroll at Miami, becoming the first player to go around the transfer portal in that way. This opened up a huge can of worms and brought to question why the transfer portal is a thing if players can just do this, and also brought up the question what is stopping a player from doing this mid-season and joining a different team midway through the season. For example, let's say a group of 5 players having an amazing season and a Power 5 school has an injury occur on their roster while making a playoff push. What is stopping that player from switching schools mid-season? The simple answer in a normal situation is that the college calendar and the rules around when people need to be enrolled in school and classes by a certain deadline, but at the same time, money talks, and bigger schools have all these lawyers on hand to possibly make it work if they want to. Playoff run and national championship are massive for college enrollment, so there could be a school out there who is willing to sell their soul to make it work. Will it happen? Probably not. But it's the can of worms that were opened up by not having Lucas transfer during the transfer portal window. Wisconsin, on the other hand, risked major NCAA sanctions by holding Lucas's name out of the portal. With the program recovering right now, I don't see them risking that if they didn't have a case. Following Lucas's departure, Wisconsin and the Big Ten both issued strong statements the next day that signaled to many a lawsuit would be coming soon. At the time, I was worried about Xavier taking bad advice from people and hoped his eligibility would not be ruined by this move. When it comes to NIL and athletes, a bad inner circle can be detrimental for a player's career. The inner circle will still make their cut of the money, even if the player is ruled ineligible, so I was worried about people making selfish decisions at the cost of Xavier Lucas's career. As a Badger fan, while I hated how the whole situation went down, I still did not want to see his career ruined over bad advice and hoped his camp was not leading him astray. I mean, this was an upcoming sophomore who was one of the top cornerbacks last year as a true freshman, and is likely going to be playing on Sundays in the future, and I didn't want to see him ruin that. By going about it the way his camp did, he risked being ruled ineligible and made an example of by the NCAA. His attorney at the time was going on long Twitter rants and taking any press media coverage he could to get his name out there, from what I witnessed. For months, things went quiet as Lucas would participate in spring practice at Miami, and Wisconsin went about their business behind closed doors. His attorney thought they had gotten off scot-free, explained to CBS Sports. There was a lot of sword waving, a lot of threats made, and to me and to the University of Miami, which is completely separate, because of what they called tampering. But they claimed they were going to enforce the agreement, that they hired local counsel down in Miami, but it never amounted to anything. Maybe they still decide that they want to bring an action, but it's been complete silence for months now. You can win the battle and lose the war. If you're suing an athlete who committed and attended your institution, number one, you didn't even follow the NCAA rules and putting his name into the transfer portal within 48 hours, that you're obligated to do so. You were already anti-athlete in that sense, and now you're going to sue the athlete. Do recruits want to go to Wisconsin when there are numerous other comparable options? According to the sources closest to the situation, Wisconsin did consider suing Lucas, but I'm glad cooler heads prevailed because I personally believe that would not have solved anything or led to any rule changes. Wisconsin had used a standard revenue sharing agreement drafted by the Big Ten that focused on name, image, and likeness rights, and if no one was willing to actually enforce it, it threatened to significantly diminish its value. Those involved believe it's demanded a shifting of mindsets from treating student athletes like kids to acknowledging there were significant money now at stake. One source with direct knowledge of the situation told CBS Sports they're being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now they're not allowing their picture to be used on the billboard, or they're not honoring their obligations, or they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's a different dynamic when there's dollars involved. Wisconsin would instead choose to file a lawsuit against Miami with the backing of the Big Ten. One high-ranking Big Ten source with direct knowledge of the situation told CBS Sports, "We believe the contract itself is enforceable. Confidence is pretty high that it can be. No one can tell me why a contract shouldn't be enforceable between an adult and an institution. Contracts are enforceable in every other aspect of the commercial regulatory enterprise." Wisconsin chose to leave Lucas out of the lawsuit and instead is focusing on the tampering aspect by Miami. In a statement to CBS Sports, the school said, in part, "While we are reluctantly bringing this case, we stand by our position that respecting and enforcing contractual obligations is essential to maintaining a level playing field." They told Yahoo Sports, as a result of Miami's actions, Lucas abruptly left UW-Madison's football program and enrolled at Miami, causing plaintiffs to suffer substantial pecuniary and reputational harm. The Big Ten said, as alleged, the University of Miami knowingly ignored contractual obligations and disregarded the principle of competitive equity that is fundamental to collegiate athletics. The Big Ten Conference believes that the University of Miami actions are irreconcilable with a sustainable college sports framework, and it's supportive of UW-Madison's effort to preserve it. According to The Athletic, Wisconsin is seeking unspecified damages in the lawsuit, as well as a declaration that Miami's conduct directed towards Lucas constituted tampering. The lawsuit alleges Lucas told his position coach before heading home for winter break that he had been contacted by other schools to enter the portal, but reaffirmed that he was committed to UW-Madison. Wisconsin's lawsuit also alleged Miami's conduct towards Lucas was not an isolated event, but a part of a broader pattern of Miami's tampering with student athletes. The lawsuit states, now more than ever, it is imperative to protect the integrity and fundamental fairness of the game, including connections with NIL and contracts. Indeed, student athletes' newfound NIL rights will be rendered meaningless if third parties are allowed to induce student athletes to abandon their contractual commitments. This case will be a landmark case for college football no matter what side wins in this case. If Wisconsin wins the case, it gives the NCAA, conferences, and school legal backing in case of tampering and could lead to enforceable rules that could move us away from the wild, wild west we have experienced. The transfer portal will not be flooded year in and year out because if a player leaves before their contract expires, they could be restricted with their NIL opportunities at their next destination and may not be eligible for revenue sharing until that contract is finished. According to CBS Sports, the Big Ten revenue share template that Wisconsin used states that it is for NIL rights and not pay for play. The lawsuit also claims that Lucas agreed to not play for another school for the duration of the 2-year contract. Additionally, it claims this revenue share agreement granted it exclusive license to Lucas's NIL rights for those 2 years, and that they could not grant them to another institution during that time period. In the future, under the new CSC rules, a school like Miami would pay a buyout that would count towards its $20.5 million cap to acquire a player who entered the transfer portal still under contract. Fans, coaches, and players and athletic directors are all tired of the rampant tampering that has been occurring over the years. TCU head coach Sonny Dykes explained in an interview there needs to be severe repercussions for it. But at the same time, you can't prove any of this stuff. You can't subpoena phone records. I'm a big believer in don't have a speed limit if you're not going to write tickets. Let's not have a bunch of rules if they aren't going to be enforced. All that does is cheapen the game in our profession, quite frankly. You better have someone to write the ticket to, enforce those rules, and right now there's nobody doing that. The unintended consequences are it could give players even more footing for a legal case classifying them as employees of schools rather than just as student athletes. In March, Wisconsin Athletic Director Chris McIntosh told Congress, moving the American college sports model into an employment regime where the relationship between institution and member of varsity teams becomes an employer-to-employee relationship would do more harm than good. If players are considered employees of the university, it could shutter multiple programs who financially cannot pay salaries across all their varsity sports, health benefits, and everything else involved in being considered a full-time employee. If Miami wins this case, tampering and everything else we hate in the sport right now will only get much worse and could open up the floodgates. Talty writes, this all has the potential to turn a sport that has already frequently been described as the Wild West into an even bigger free-for-all right when leaders believed long-awaited solutions were finally coming with the House settlement approved. That cap I mentioned earlier could be called into question, and much more could as well if the contracts aren't binding. The results of this court case could change college football, and there has been so many other changes over the past few years. The sad part of it all, this was so unavoidable had the NCAA just given up their nonprofit status to be able to enforce their own rules back in 2021 and actually put up guardrails to keep this from happening. But as always, they fell asleep at the wheel and continue to focus on filling their own pockets. For the NCAA, I hope it was all worth it for them when the game collapses down the road and the Big Ten and SEC leave to create their own leagues together. As the Wisconsin versus Miami situation explained, and what could result from it. I was hesitant to make this video because I am a Badger fan, but tried to stay unbiased throughout the situation. I love college football and want to see it succeed. I want to see the players in the game all find success, and it breaks my heart hearing about fans not watching anymore because of the mess that is NIL and the transfer portal right now. I hope this landmark case helps college football and doesn't kill it. What do you think? How do you feel about the situation? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out one of my other videos YouTube thinks you will love right here. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, remember to embrace the grind.